Hi, folks. Mr. Dell here. We are looking at interpreting a box plot, or known as the box and whisker plot, um, and looking at the data. So here's our box plot, and interpreting what those numbers mean and what you can actually get from a box plot. So let's read the question. This is from CPM course 3, CC3, section 6.2.2. This is number 6-63. So here we go. The box plot at the right shows the different grades in percent, so our percentages that students in Ms. Sanchez's class earned on a recent test. So here's the percentages that we see, and let's get some data from that based on these questions. So what was the median score on the test? And then what were the highest and lowest scores? Well, from a box plot, we know that if given a whole bunch of data, a set of data, you would put it in order from smallest to biggest, right, in consecutive order. And then you find that middle, which the middle is the median. The median is the middle. Once you find that middle is where you start your box. So that line in the middle of the box, or not necessarily in the very middle of the box, but in the box, is your median. So 80. So for part A, we'd say our median score is equal to 80%. Okay, that's that score there. And then the highest and lowest, well, those are the ends of the whiskers, right? So box and whisker. So these whiskers. So our lowest score is 55%, right? That's our lowest. And then our highest score is 100%. And that's the end of there. Okay. So part B, what does B ask us? B says, did most of the students earn a particular score? How do you know? Well, from a box plot, you can't determine necessarily quantity of a particular score. What I do see is we know the 74 and the 90s. 74 represents the middle of the lower quartile, right? The lower quartile. So if I were to list 55 through 80 in order, 55 through 80, all the scores, that 74 is the middle of it. And because it's really close to 80, that means there's um, there's a fourth of the scores are in this range here. A fourth of the scores are between 74 and 80. So I could see that, and maybe I'll answer that. 1/4 of the scores are between 74% and 80%. So that is one of the things we can see. So there's a big mass there between 74 and 80%. Okay. And then part C now says if Miss Sanchez has 32 students in her class, about how many students earned a grade of 80% or higher? Well, again, that 80% is the middle of the data. So the middle of the data means 50%, half of the students are 80 or above. So we can say half of the students are 80% or above, right? So if there's 32 students, we can say then therefore 16 students, right, earned an 80% or higher. So that gives us that information based on the box plot. So let's keep going. So then it says, what about 90? How about how many earned more than 90%? Well, again, remember now that 90 is the upper quartile. It's the center of the top end of the data. So just like we would say that there was a fourth of the students were between 74 and 80, well, a fourth of the students are also going to be between 90 and 100. So if that's the case, I can say, well, the 1/4, and I'll just write it out, 1/4 of 32 is 8. So that we can also say that 8 students earned 90% or higher. Okay, 8 students. So last question, D. Can you tell if the scores between 80 and 90% were closer to 80 or closer to 90? Now, I could see down here that the scores here, there's a big massive scores. A fourth of the scores are in that place. But if I think where 90 is in comparison to 80 and 80 and 100, 90 is right really in between, isn't it? So 90 here is right in between those two. So you've got a fourth in this and a fourth in here. So it's almost equal. There's an equal amount of students in here as in here. And it's hard to tell. You can't, in fact, you cannot tell. Are there more students closer to 80 or 90? Because that information is not being able to be interpreted in this box, right? So because that 90 is right in the half and this 80, we don't know where these lie. All I know is a fourth of those numbers lie between 80 and 90. So my answer for D would be, what did D ask? Can you tell? So you can't tell. So D, we would say no. The box plot does not give us that information. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helped.